whose brilliance illuminated the darkest corners of the cosmos and the quietest chambers of my heart. Your curiosity was the spark that ignited the impossible, your love the constant that grounded me, and your absence the void that dared me to look beyond the veil of the known. This journey, born of sorrow, is a testament to the enduring power of connection that transcends even the most absolute of endings. May this tale echo the infinite wonder you always saw in the universe, and the profound truth that love, like starlight, travels across unimaginable distances, forever shaping the darkness. To the boundless mysteries we explored together, and those I ventured into alone, forever chasing your echo. This is for you, and for the impossible hope that somewhere beyond the shattered fragments of space-time, our understanding might one day converge. Chapter 1. The Echo of Absence. The dome of the observatory, a monument to a universe of wonders, had become a tomb. For Dr. Alastair Finch, the sleek metallic shell that had once housed his dreams of charting the unknown now echoed with a silence so profound it felt like a physical weight. Eleanor. Her name, a whispered prayer on his lips, was the only sound that dared to break the oppressive quiet. The hum of the telescope's motor, usually a comforting thrum, now sounded like a mechanical dirge, a lonely counterpoint to the tempest in his soul. Each night, under the indifferent gaze of a million distant suns, he sat, a prisoner in his sanctuary, surrounded by the sterile beauty of scientific instruments that offered no solace, only stark reminders of what was lost. The observatory, once a shared space, a universe built for two, was now a desolate landscape of his grief. The whiteboard, usually alive with collaborative scribbles and elegant equations that spoke of shared intellectual passion, was now a stark white canvas of absence. He'd traced the lines of theoretical physics, the elegant dance of quantum mechanics, the grand tapestry of space-time, but each number, each symbol, only seemed to highlight the immeasurable void Eleanor had left. It was as if the universe itself had fractured the moment she'd slipped away, leaving behind a gaping hole that his rational mind could neither comprehend nor fill. He remembered the warmth of her hand, the way her eyes would sparkle when he explained a new discovery, the shared laughter that would echo through the dome as they charted the distant nebulae. Now, those memories were shards of glass, beautiful yet agonizing, slicing at his heart with every passing moment. He would find himself staring at her empty chair, the worn leather still bearing the faint imprint of her presence, and the silence would rush back in, an engulfing tide. The stars, once beacons of hope and wonder, were now cold, distant witnesses to his despair. They offered no answers, only an eternal, silent vigil that mirrored his own. His research, once a vibrant exploration, had become an obsession, a desperate, frantic attempt to find meaning in the meaningless. He'd delve into the minutiae of cosmological constants, the infinitesimally small probabilities of quantum events, searching for a pattern, a glitch, anything that might explain the inexplicable. He would spend hours poring over data, his eyes burning, his mind a whirl of numbers and theories, hoping that somewhere within the vastness of the universe there was a clue, a whisper of how such an absolute void could be created. He was looking for an equation that could quantify absence, a theorem that could explain the sudden, violent cessation of a life, of a universe that had revolved around her. The faint scent of her perfume still lingered in her favorite armchair, a phantom limb of her presence. He'd traced the constellations she loved, Orion, Cassiopeia, her personal favorites, and imagine her beside him, her voice a gentle murmur explaining the myths woven into their celestial patterns. But the reality was always the same: the cold metal of the telescope, the sterile hum of the life support systems, and the deafening roar of his own silent screams. The observatory, a testament to humanity's yearning for knowledge, had become a shrine to his personal loss, a mausoleum of starlight and sorrow. He would run simulations, intricate models of stellar evolution and galactic formation, seeking a cosmic anomaly that mirrored the anomaly in his own life. He'd project images of her favorite celestial objects onto the dome's interior, a desperate attempt to conjure her presence, to fill the emptiness with the ghosts of shared memories. But the projected light was cold, the images static, and the silence remained, a constant, chilling companion. He was adrift in a sea of stars, a solitary vessel lost in an infinite ocean of grief, with no shore in sight. The scientific community would never understand. They saw him as a brilliant mind, a leader in astrophysics, a man dedicated to the rational pursuit of knowledge. They couldn't see the raw, gaping wound beneath the veneer of academic composure. They couldn't comprehend the desperate hope that perhaps, just perhaps, in the vast, uncharted territories of the universe, in the very fabric of reality, there was an explanation, a resonance, a whisper of Eleanor that could somehow bridge the chasm of her absence. He was a scientist, trained to seek empirical evidence, but his grief had become a force beyond reason, a primal urge to defy the immutable laws of existence. He would trace the lines of her last unfinished equation, a complex theoretical framework on the nature of consciousness and its potential entanglement with spacetime. She had been so close, he knew, on the verge of a breakthrough that had eluded even the greatest minds. He would stare at it for hours, a tangible link to her brilliant intellect, a desperate hope that by understanding her work, he might somehow understand her disappearance. It was a dangerous path, a descent into the labyrinth of his own sorrow, fueled by a desperate, almost heretical belief that Eleanor's absence was not an end, but a transition, a movement into a realm beyond his current understanding. The observatory, once his temple of science, was becoming his crucible, where the fires of grief and logic would forge a new, terrifying reality. He was no longer just an observer of the cosmos. He was becoming a participant, a rogue element in the grand, silent symphony of existence, all in the desperate pursuit of an echo. The observatory's sterile embrace, once a symbol of scientific precision and intellectual rigor, now felt like a shroud. Alistair moved through its confines with the hollowed-out gait of a man haunted not by specters, but by the sheer, crushing weight of absence. Each polished surface, each precisely calibrated instrument, seemed to mock him with its inherent order, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed his life. The vast, star-dusted dome, a window to the infinite, now served as a magnifying glass for the gaping void left by Eleanor. The celestial bodies he meticulously observed, distant galaxies, swirling nebulae, the silent march of planets, were no longer subjects of scientific curiosity, but cold, indifferent markers of time, each tick of the cosmic clock a hammer blow against his already shattered psyche. He would find himself staring at the whiteboard, the clean, stark surface a painful reminder of the collaborative fervor that once animated it. Eleanor's unfinished equation, a tantalizing fragment of her brilliant mind, was etched into the surface, a constant, agonizing reminder of what was lost. He'd trace the elegant curves of her theoretical constructs, the bold conjectures that danced on the edge of known physics, and the void would deepen. These were not just abstract symbols. They were whispers of her intellect, fragments of her soul he desperately sought to reassemble. His hands, once steady as they manipulated delicate instruments, would tremble as he ran his fingers over the chalk dust, a phantom touch across the chasm of her departure. The hum of the observatory's machinery, a constant, low thrum that once represented the pulse of discovery, now sounded like a mournful dirge. It was the sound of a universe continuing its indifferent spin, oblivious to the seismic shift that had occurred within the small human world of Alistair Finch. He would sit for hours, enveloped in this mechanical lament, the vastness of space outside a stark mirror to the desolation within. The sterile air, filtered and recycled, offered no comfort, only a constant, subtle reminder of the artificiality of his environment, a stark contrast to the vibrant, organic life that had been so abruptly extinguished. He'd revisit old data logs, not for scientific insight, but for the faint echoes of their shared work. He'd watch holographic recordings of their collaborative sessions, seeing her animated gestures, hearing the lilt of her voice as she challenged his assumptions, as she pushed him to consider possibilities he'd dismissed. These were not mere sentimental replays. They were desperate attempts to recapture the warmth, the intellectual spark, the sheer aliveness that had defined his existence. Yet each viewing only served to deepen the ache, to highlight the profound emptiness that now permeated every corner of his life. The observatory, once a sanctuary of shared dreams, had become a gilded cage, its magnificence a constant, cruel reminder of his solitary confinement. His research had transformed. The pursuit of knowledge, once driven by a thirst for understanding the universe, was now fueled by a desperate, almost pathological need to understand Eleanor's absence. He'd pore over theoretical frameworks, the complex dance of quantum entanglement, the enigmatic nature of consciousness, not for their inherent beauty, but for any hint, any anomaly, any deviation from the expected that might offer a clue. He was searching for a crack in the facade of reality, a tear in the fabric of space-time that could explain how a life, so vibrant and full, could simply cease to be. He was looking for the scientific equivalent of a ghost, a quantifiable anomaly that mirrored the immeasurable void in his own existence. He remembered their debates, the passionate arguments that would ignite in the heart of the observatory, the air crackling with intellectual energy. Eleanor, with her intuitive leaps and her uncanny ability to see patterns he'd overlooked, had often been the one to steer their research in unexpected directions. He missed her challenges, her insights, the way her presence had made him not just a better scientist, but a better man. Now, the silence amplified his thoughts, and his own voice, when he dared to speak, sounded alien and hollow in the vast expanse of the dome. The very stars seemed to conspire against him. He'd track the slow, majestic sweep of constellations, their ancient light traveling eons to reach his instruments, and he would feel an overwhelming sense of futility. What was the point of charting the universe when the most important part of his own universe had vanished? Each distant star was a reminder of the vastness, the indifference, the sheer, crushing scale of existence, and his own small, grief-stricken world within it. He was an astrophysicist, a man who dealt with the grandest scales, yet he was utterly undone by the most intimate of losses. He would revisit the spectral analysis of cosmic background radiation, searching for subtle fluctuations, anomalies that might suggest an underlying consciousness woven into the very fabric of the universe. He wrestled with the paradoxes of quantum mechanics, the unsettling idea that observation could influence reality, that consciousness itself might play a role in shaping the cosmos. These were not new inquiries, but now they were imbued with a desperate urgency, a hope that perhaps Eleanor's consciousness, her very essence, had somehow become entangled with the universal substrate, leaving a residual imprint he could detect, a signal he could decipher. His grief had become a lens, distorting his perception, sharpening his focus on the fringes of scientific inquiry. He was no longer content with the established models, the comforting certainties of physics. He craved an explanation that transcended the empirical, a truth that resonated with the profound, inexplicable void she had left behind. The observatory, once his temple of reason, was becoming his laboratory of grief, where he would conduct experiments not on matter and energy, but on the very nature of existence and the enduring power of love and loss. He was embarking on a descent, a solitary journey into the uncharted territories of his own psyche, guided by the faint, spectral light of a love that refused to be extinguished. The hum of the life support systems, once a gentle undercurrent of normalcy, now seemed to thrum with a melancholic resonance, a lonely vibration in the vast, star-dusted quiet of the observatory. Dr. Alastair Finch, a man whose life had been meticulously ordered by the elegant predictability of celestial mechanics, found himself adrift in a sea of disarray. Eleanor, his wife, his anchor, his co-navigator through the cosmic expanse, was gone. Not merely absent, but irrevocably, inexplicably vanished, leaving behind a void so profound it seemed to warp the very space within the dome that had once been their shared sanctuary. Each observation, each meticulous calculation scrawled onto the gleaming whiteboard, served only to underscore the magnitude of her absence. The stars, once vibrant points of intellectual fascination, now appeared as cold, distant specks of light, indifferent witnesses to his profound grief. He would trace the familiar patterns of constellations, the celestial maps that had once been a source of shared wonder, and the silence would press in, a tangible entity suffocating him. The sterile, metallic scent of the observatory, usually a comforting aroma of scientific pursuit, now clung to him like a shroud. He remembered the warmth of her presence, the way her laughter would echo through the dome during their late-night observation sessions, the shared excitement as they charted the unknown. These memories, once sources of comfort, were now shards of glass, each recollection a fresh wound. Her empty chair, still bearing the faint imprint of her form, was a monument to his loss, a constant, agonizing reminder of the vibrant life that had been so brutally extinguished. The hum of the telescope's machinery, a sound that had once represented the steady pulse of discovery, now seemed to mock him with its mechanical monotony, a lonely counterpoint to the cacophony of his inner turmoil. His descent had begun the moment Eleanor had slipped away. The observatory, once a place of shared ambition and intellectual communion, had transformed into a sterile mausoleum, its every polished surface reflecting the stark reality of his solitude. He found himself staring at the whiteboard. The elegant equations that had once represented their shared journey now seemed like indecipherable hieroglyphs, symbols of a language he could no longer speak without her. Her unfinished equation, a tantalizing fragment of her brilliant mind, remained a persistent, painful enigma, a testament to the intellectual partnership that had been so cruelly severed. He'd traced the lines, the complex theoretical pathways she had begun to explore, desperately hoping for a sign, a hint, a key to unlock the mystery of her departure. The scientific tools that had once been extensions of his intellect now felt like alien objects. The spectrographs, the interferometers, the powerful optical telescopes. They offered no solace, no answers. They were merely instruments, cold and unfeeling, incapable of comprehending the depth of his despair. He would run simulations, complex models of cosmic phenomena, searching for anomalies, for deviations from the expected, as if the universe itself might hold a clue to the inexplicable void Eleanor had left. He was seeking a pattern in the chaos, a rational explanation for an event that defied all logic, all known science. He remembered their debates, the spirited arguments that would ignite in the heart of the observatory, the air alive with intellectual electricity. Eleanor, with her sharp mind and her intuitive leaps, had often been the one to challenge his assumptions, to push their research into uncharted territories. He missed her insights, her warmth, the way her presence had made the vastness of the cosmos feel a little less daunting. Now the silence was absolute, broken only by the mournful hum of machinery and the even more mournful echo of his own grief. The very stars, once beacons of hope and wonder, now seemed to gleam with an accusatory light. He would gaze at distant galaxies, swirling nebulae, the silent dance of planets, and feel an overwhelming sense of futility. What was the purpose of charting the universe when the most important part of his own universe had vanished? Each celestial body was a reminder of the vast, indifferent expanse, and his own small, solitary existence within it. He was an astrophysicist, a man trained to seek order in the cosmos, yet he was utterly overwhelmed by the disorder of his own life. His research had become an obsession, a desperate, all-consuming quest to find meaning in the void. He delved into the esoteric realms of quantum mechanics, the perplexing nature of consciousness, the theoretical underpinnings of space-time, not for the sake of pure knowledge, but as a means to an end. He was searching for a crack in the edifice of reality, a fissure through which he might glimpse the reason for Eleanor's absence, or perhaps, impossibly, a way to bridge the chasm that separated them. The observatory, once his temple of science, was becoming his crucible, a place where the fires of grief and logic would forge a new, terrifying path. He was no longer merely an observer of the cosmos. He was becoming a trespasser, driven by a love that refused to acknowledge the immutable laws of existence. The polished chrome and glass of the observatory, once symbols of Alistair Finch's intellectual dominion over the cosmos, now felt like the cold, sterile walls of a prison. The sudden, inexplicable absence of his wife Eleanor had shattered the meticulously ordered universe he inhabited. Each distant star observed through the observatory's powerful lenses, each complex equation scribbled on the whiteboard, served only to amplify the echoing void she had left behind. The narrative opens with Alistair immersed in this profound silence, the low hum of the observatory's machinery, a lonely counterpoint to the tempest raging within him. This was the stage for his descent, the sterile, star-dusted confines of his sanctuary, now a stark monument to his overwhelming grief. The weight of the cosmos pressed down on him, not as a source of wonder, but as a crushing testament to his solitary despair. He was a man adrift, his scientific mind grappling with an immeasurable loss, the rational world he knew dissolving into the profound, terrifying unknown of absence.